Alright, what's going on, guys? We are now in the big lead up to Armored Core 6, almost exactly 2 months away from the game's release. And for us fans, that means something very good. That the marketing cycle is now in full swing. And with these marketing cycles comes tons of new information about the game, almost on a daily basis. And today is one of those days, because the latest edition of Gameinformer just dropped with a huge segment about Armored Core 6. And in this segment, they cover a ton of things, ranging from what the office at FromSoftware is like, to describing an entire new level of Armored Core that we haven't seen yet, and we're gonna break it all down here today. So as we dive in, I do want to remind you guys that I am gonna be giving away a free copy of Armored Core 6 to one subscriber here on the channel once we reach our goal of 100k, and all you gotta do to be entered in for that is number 1, be subscribed, number 2, leave a like on the video, and number 3, leave a comment in the comment section down below. But with all that, let's go ahead and jump into all the new information. Last week, we covered a press event that was held during the play days at Summer Games Fest, where a lot of press and influencers got to see a demo level of Armored Core 6. And after that was finally revealed, we got only 4 minutes of the gameplay, with a lot of details hidden from the public view. Now, the press and influencers got to see an extended version of that lasting about 20 minutes. But while that was going on, 2 journalists from Gameinformer got flown all the way out to Tokyo to go visit FromSoftware at the office. And during their time there, they got to see a total of 2 hours of gameplay, as well as interview the team behind the game. And the segment opens up describing the office itself. Underwhelming. That's the easiest word to describe FromSoftware's office. Tucked away in a nondescript building in Tokyo, the company takes up at least 9 floors of a 13-story building. Inside, we're only allowed to see a small lobby and 2 conference rooms, one for our interview and another for a demo. Each is stale, white, and plain, with only a few framed pictures of Elden Ring review quotes to mark that, indeed, FromSoftware is here. We're here to be the first people in the world to see Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. It's the next in line after a near unprecedented run of successful games, starting with the lauded Souls series, then moving on to 2015's Bloodborne and 2019's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, before reaching a critical and commercial apex with 2022's massively successful Elden Ring. The page then goes on to give a brief history of Armored Core, and then touch on the rise to fame of the Souls series, but we do have a few interesting details here. We get to see icons of 4 guns, most of which we've already seen. The first is the Arquebus laser rifle, which I believe we've seen wielded by this light mech here. The second is the Balam assault rifle, which I couldn't find in the gameplay but might have already been shown. The third is the Balam pile shown in the TGA trailer, and finally we have the Balam shotgun also shown in that trailer. The next page opens up by describing a little bit of Armored Core 6's development history. The seeds of Armored Core 6 began in 2017. By the following year, Miyazaki and a small group of team members were building prototypes, and then in 2019, after the release of Sekiro, a director finally came on board. Sekiro's lead designer Masaru Yamamura making his directorial debut at FromSoftware. Yamamura is now one of the few people to direct a game at From in the last decade that isn't Miyazaki. He says it's been stressful taking in this new role. He had to learn how to share ideas with the team and keep the vision consistent throughout. Around a third of the entire company is now on Armored Core 6, we're told. But a few years into his new job, he's learning what kind of director he wants to be. He then goes on to describe how, as a director, Yamamura focuses on the sharing of ideas. And rather than going around and telling everybody what to do, he makes it more of a group effort. But there is the unavoidable proverbial crater left by Elden Ring, quickly considered not only one of FromSoftware's best games, but one of the greatest games of all time after its release in February 2022. As producer and director respectively, Ogura and Yamamura admit they have a lot to live up to. It is scary, Ogura admits, but you have to just sort of steel yourself and say, alright, well, let's make this one count as well. Making Armored Core 6 count is in some ways keeping it in line with the Armored Core tenets, which is to say it's not a Souls game, and that's an important distinction. And that is a big factor that's going to be interesting to see play out. By the end of all this marketing, I am going to be curious how many of those Souls fans are going to be willing to try something new, but I am going to make a full video on that question here soon. Also featured on that page though is a really cool piece of concept art that we haven't seen, and it gives us a cool look at the Smart Cleaner boss. And in the article they do state that this was the primary boss they got to see gameplay of, the same one we see in the public gameplay, and whoever was playing the demo for them died to this guy a lot. But after this, they begin to discuss the gameplay they saw. We see 2 missions totaling 2 hours of gameplay and repeat boss attempts. The first is a short prologue mission, though we're not allowed to disclose details, that establishes and tests the fundamentals of piloting an Armored Core mecha. Next, we witness a stage from Chapter 2 on Grid 086, a sky-high installation housing an orbital lift called the Intercontinental Cargo Launcher. Raven must use the device to cross an ocean separating him from the central ice field, a location significant to the game's story. Outside Outside, plumes of smoke brim into the atmosphere like geysers. The grid's network of steel beams contrast miles of empty airspace below, and evidence of production litters the stage in various forms of cargo. The scale and level design is fantastic, but we're still hoping for a stronger hook that makes us want to explore the world. Based on what we saw, levels are a bit bland, especially interiors. We spend our time quickly going from point A to B, without much impetus to spend time poking around. Compared to other From games, all with fantastic, believable worlds, the lifelessness of RUBICON, though narratively appropriate, leaves us a bit cold. I do want to quickly interject here that what they're talking about in terms of the world feeling a bit lifeless, and there not being an emphasis on exploration, while they probably are correct, that's not the point, and FromSoftware have stated this several times in interviews. It's not the slow and methodical adventure of the Souls games. You're on mission tasks, so you don't really have time for that. The third page pretty much sums up information that we already know, covering things like movement and the garage, but there are a few things to pick apart here. Firstly, we can see icons of two different mechs, those being the Balam 2-leg and the Arquebus 2-leg, and then an image from the garage of a new weapon, the MAJ-201 Rensetsu AR, and we get to see a new faction logo here, BAWS. And the description of this AR reads, Burst Assault Rifle developed by Boss. This weapon offers high accuracy and spontaneous firepower thanks to its burst-oriented design, leading to its mass production for use by new recruits on the Rubicon Liberation Front. So we get a nice little bit of lore right there. And there was one other point that I thought was interesting. There will be extensive cosmetic options, near infinite combinations of user-generated aesthetics. Yoshimura says, exaggerating a bit, people can upload and share their creations online. So it does look like there's going to be a hub for AC customization. Page 4 describes their run-in with the Smart Cleaner, which we've already seen in detail in the gameplay, but again there are things to pick out. We get icons of 3 more builds, the Arquebus 4-leg, the Balam tank, and the Balteus, which I think looks absolutely sick. But to sum up their experience, Gameinformer concludes with this. Inevitably, Armored Core fans and some contingent of Soulsborne players will welcome the change of pace. Others might find it a bit dated after a run of revolutionary From games. We feel confident saying that because that's where we're both sitting after seeing the game, somewhere in the middle of excitement and trepidation. But not for nothing, From has earned some trust over the last several years. It doesn't usually make bad games, or at least not recently it hasn't. And so for now we're acknowledging our misgivings while also giving the studio some benefit of doubt. Time will tell if Rubicon becomes the next FromSoftware world we lose ourselves inside. So I don't know, man, it kind of sounds to me like they weren't expecting it to be an Armored Core game, because a lot of the misgivings they listed are based on the comparison to Souls, but I'm not trying to dig up that conversation again. Either way though, there was a lot of cool information in there, but that will conclude the Armored Core section of the new Gameinformer magazine. If you want to read it for yourself in browser, I'll have a link down in the description below, but if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it, and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Armored Core and FromSoftware. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.